Good morning. I want to test your biblical knowledge a little bit this morning. Where in the Bible does it say God will not give us more than we can handle? Give me a minute to think about that. The truth is, Scripture does not say that. I'm pretty sure you've heard somebody tell you that. But I'm going to kind of clarify that this morning. If they told you that, this is probably the scripture they were thinking about. It comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 10, beginning with verse 13. It says, "But remember that the temptations that come into your life are no different from what others experience, and God is faithful. He will keep the temptation from becoming so strong that you can't stand up against it. When you are tempted, He will show you a way out so you will not give in to it." So it didn't say God wouldn't give you more than you could handle. It says God won't allow you to be tempted beyond what you can resist, is what that scripture is saying. And in fact, there's another scripture, again from Paul, that pretty much says things do come into our life that are more than we can handle. This comes from 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 8. It says, "I think you ought to know, dear brothers and sisters, about the trouble we went through in the province of Asia. We were crushed and completely overwhelmed, and we thought we would never live through it. In fact, we expected to die. But as a result, we learned not to rely on ourselves, but on God who can raise the dead. And He did deliver us from mortal danger. And we are confident that He will continue to deliver us. He will rescue us because you are helping by praying for us. As a result, many people will give thanks to God because so many people's prayers for our safety have been answered." So Paul is saying here, it was more than they could handle. They were completely overwhelmed. They didn't think they were going to live. And so, Scripture doesn't really say God doesn't give us more than we can handle. What the Scripture does say is that God is with us through it. It also encourages us to pray for each other. And when we can understand and embrace that, we as Christians, we need to know that it doesn't mean our life isn't going to be hard. It also doesn't mean that thing about God's not going to give us more than we can handle. To say that says that we have the ability to deal with what's in our lives all the time, and that's just not true. God needs to be a part of what we're doing, and sometimes we can't do anything about it. It feels like we're being crushed at times in life. I want to throw some out that I think might be a little bit relevant today. My son Noah is going to get an endoscopy today. It can be somewhat of a scary procedure. They're going to run something down inside him. They're going to put him completely asleep. And I asked him how he was feeling about it this morning. He said, "Dad, I'm not really worried about it. At least not right now." You know what his biggest concern was? When he's going to get to eat again. Because he hadn't been able to eat anything since last night, and he's not going to have the procedure until this afternoon. He'll probably be late afternoon before he gets anything to eat. And Christy and I were talking about why is it that he's not worried, and Christy made a comment. She said, "Well, Greg, he knows that you've been through this before." And I have. I've had the exact same procedure done he's going to have done, and I think he knows that I've experienced that. I'm going to be there with him, and that brings a little bit of comfort. It made me think that we need to realize that whatever we face in life, God knows the exact circumstances. God knows what we're going through. God knows the outcome. And if we have that type of relationship with God, it should offer even more comfort, even more encouragement than what it is for me to be there with Noah when I've been through it. So I encourage you, when hard times come, and they will, or if someone else is going through a hard time, don't quote a verse that's not there by saying God won't give you more than you can handle. Maybe instead share the verse that lets them know that God is with them and recognize that Scripture encourages us to pray for each other in the midst of that. Another thing I told Noah I was going to do today, and if you know me, this is kind of a big deal. I told Noah I'm not going to eat anything today either until he gets to eat after his procedure. And I don't like to go very long without eating, but I think there's a sense of us being in this together that also helps him to appreciate what he's experiencing today in a way that we get to do it together. And I didn't have to do that. In fact, he said, Dad, why would you do that? And it's just because I care, and I want to be with him through this. And maybe you find ways to be with people in your life that might be struggling in hardships or difficulties right now. But whatever it is, know that God is always with you, and you don't have to handle it by yourself.